Hey, you. Nice to see you again. This is Penny, and I am at EFT, Tapping for Stress Relief, and I'm the creator of the Habits of Happiness courses. Something that people say a lot about doing EFT is they don't know what to tap on. They don't know where to start. Well, right now, for almost all Americans and for many other people in the Northern Hemisphere, heat is the big issue. So I'm in Portland and we are having a run of 100-degree days. We always joke that because we live in Portland, we never get to complain about the weather. If it's hot here, it's been hotter and longer everywhere else. If it's cold here, it's been colder, longer, and they've got feet of snow, whether and we might have inches. Um, but nonetheless, since we aren't accustomed to as much heat, it really affects people here, and it affects people everywhere. One of the physiological responses of our bodies to excessive heat is they actually release stress hormones, adrenaline, epinephrine, cortisol. And I tried to look up specifically what each of these hormones might do in relation to managing heat. So I don't know if they actually help manage heat or not. But all of the stress hormones are designed to help us deal with very short-term situations. They were designed to get us up, moving, motivated, and mobilized to run away, flight, to fight, or if all else fails, to freeze. They are short-term solutions, and a heat wave is a long-term solution. Modern stress is it's not a solution problem. Modern life is a long-term stress situation. So these stress hormones, while useful in the short term for many situations still, if you have a presentation to give, you want to be up, right? So in that situation, stress is good. It gets you alert and awake, it gets your mind mobilized, and gets you ready to do what you need to do. But with a heat wave, I don't know that long term, one, whether they're good for you, or two, whether they're really helpful at all or not. They might increase some sweating. So, and the other response is that it constricts blood vessels. So it sounds like maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. So I'm going to have to leave that up to you to do some further research, and if you are in of an inquiring mind. Um, but very hot conditions also affect our mental health. So emergency room visits increase for all sorts of reasons during the heat, including mental health visits for a variety of schizophrenia was one that I saw, anxiety was one, and other things that you might not think would be related, like kidney problems and all sorts of other physiological things other than heat stroke and heat exhaustion. But also, it affects our cognitive function. So our poor little brains are affected by an awful lot, and our ability to think is clouded by stress and by apparently just heat. So it's never made sense to me that violent crime and just basic violence, domestic violence and rioting and all of that stuff goes up in heat waves. I'm thinking, my God, who's got the energy? But that may be a function of the clouded cognitive ability that heat brings and the increased stress hormones that heat apparently brings out in us. So how does tapping relate to this? Tapping reduces stress hormones. So if your body is amped up, you might be misinterpreting the signals. Your body may be just responding to the heat by releasing these stress hormones. You might be interpreting those physiological symptoms as emotions. So just as our thoughts can create feelings in the body, when we have feelings in the body, our mind works to interpret them. What am I feeling? You may have said this, if something happens and your mind is just blown away, right? You might actually say, I don't even know how to feel about that, right? So it takes your mind a while sometimes to catch up with the feelings in your body. So if you're just way hot and your body is putting out stress hormones, you may be feeling tightness or a knot in your stomach, and your mind is going to interpret this as anxiety. So now you're going to start looking for reasons to be anxious, and you might indeed find them if you don't know that this is just your body's response to the heat. Now, there's a second level to this. Anything that happens to us has probably happened before, and we have had responses to it before. And the way our mind works is every time we are exposed to something happens to us, we refer back. What happened then? How did I respond? Who did that? How did it turn out? So you go back to the well and you draw on all those experiences and you bring that into the present. Now that may or may not be relevant to the current situation at all. What happened to you when you were 5 and your response to it, probably not what you need to be remembering, responding as now. A lot of people have this saying in the EFT community, would you let a 5-year-old run your life? Because in so many ways, our responses to things were established when we were that young. But let me just give a personal example. I had Graves' disease more than 20 some years ago now. And it was a 4-year window of time in which life and my health it felt like a life and death struggle. I really did feel like, I do feel like I could have died. But that's one of the things, I was going to digress again, but one of the symptoms was that I was extremely intolerant of heat. So that carried forward for many, many years. I had a lot of anxiety. Even after I had gotten the Graves' disease into remission, I still had a lot of symptoms. My system did not rebound just to where it had been before. So my journey was still much longer. But heat of any kind, being hot, being exposed to heat, being in a situation where I couldn't be in charge of my temperature was extremely anxiety producing. So you may have some situation in your past where you have had a bad response to heat. And so you actually do have an emotional response that you can tap on. So when people don't know what to tap on, I always say just start with your current truth. If you know that the heat is coming, you could start with, I'm really frightened, angry, scared, apprehensive about this upcoming heat wave. And take each one of those emotions, or whatever apply to you, and tap through them with the points. Now, doing this is sort of general, and with EFT we want to get more specific. But starting general is like opening the door. And listen, there may be some period of time when you ask the question. Inherently in the process of tapping, you are asking your nervous system, your subconscious, to let whatever is ready to let go and be processed, to bring that to the surface. So you might be tapping, and you might just invite your nervous system to bring forth whatever needs or wants to come forward at this time, to be released. And you might have a memory, you might have a thought. Nothing that shows up at this point, even before you start tapping, when you know you're going to, and especially during the tapping itself, is serendipity. If something shows up, no matter how unrelated it seems, it's part of this emotional ball of twine. So just go with it. And then we call it daisy chaining. Just follow each thought, each emotion, each event, and tap each one thoroughly until you get down to a low number, and then move on, but always circle back to the beginning. So that is how heat affects you, how you might mistake your heat response as an emotional anxiety response, and how you can use tapping to release true emotionally stuck memories about heat and how it has affected you in your life. If you need tapping tutorials, go to my website. There will be a card at the end of this video giving you a lot of links where you can go and look up more stuff. And you are always, always free to contact me through those sources, and I will get them and respond to you. So I hope that you have a joyful heart. I hope that you are staying cool and that you are managing your emotions, regardless of the source of them, well. Take care. Bye-bye.